All right. I am Mia Macy. I do a radio and TV show out of San Francisco Bay, and it's more than a feeling, it's all things Mia. So, there I am. And I figured I was in Boston. So, I was like, what's a cool song for Boston? That's my theme song. And I apologize, I'm a Yankee gal. So I like the Yankees. So the first thing I did was take off my Yankee jacket and make sure it didn't make the plane with me. Everyone's like, you're gonna get beat up. So, yes, I am a Yankee gal. So I am Mia Macy, and I'm basically, I call myself like an accidental activist. This wasn't how life planned out for me. Had everything planned out the way I wanted it to be, I would be pitching for the Yankees in like Game 2 of the World Series. But let's see, life doesn't work out the way we plan, ever. I would be riding the F train. I'd look like another soccer mom just riding the train to my little cubicle. But it didn't work out that way. But I am still a blonde, always have been a blonde. So I still got that going for me. I started life in Phoenix, Arizona. And when I was born, apparently the doctor held me up and went, boy. And that wasn't the first time someone got it wrong. Wouldn't be the last time. I always have had a dog by my side, though. That's one thing I haven't changed either. Growing up in Arizona isn't really conducive to being transgender. And one of my first memories on this planet was I was really little, and I have two older sisters, and they would go to dance class. And I remember they gave me this big, ugly Tonka truck, and like this thing, and like loaded and everything. I don't know what it does. I still don't. So, but I did not want a dump truck. I did not want a dump truck. So I couldn't understand why they went to dance class. So one day I just put it on, full regalia. And I had been watching shuffle, step, and I knew the whole little routine. So get in the car, mom's got 3 little girls in the back seat, not 2. Didn't go over well. Didn't do well in Arizona. So off went the dress. Little boys don't wear that. So well, I always had a gun belt too. So I'm sorry for that. Sorry about having a gun belt, but I always had a gun belt, and I still do. Hey, girl can have a gun belt. So I have a paper route. I'm a little bit older, and this will date me, so don't try to figure out the math. But please don't try to figure out the math. But so I have this paper route, and I'm doing this paper route, and I come home one summer and sit down with my little breakfast, and Donahue comes on, his pre-Oprah. And he's got my daughter. My son is now my daughter. And this mother raising, and at the bottom of the screen it says transsexual. And I didn't know. Up until that point in my life, I thought I was the only one who existed. I didn't know there was another human being on this planet that thought the way I did, that felt the way I did. Living in Arizona, in the conditions I was raised in, I didn't know there was another human being like me. So I'm watching this show. So back then, again, don't figure out the dates, there wasn't the internet. So I rode my bike down to the library, and I had to look in the card catalog, and I looked up transsexual, and it's in the medical section. Yes, anyone that knows what I'm talking about, stop it. That's not right. Okay, so I look it up, and it's transsexual, and I'm like, oh my God. So I got to go down this medical aisle, and I'm looking at pancreatic cancer. I'm looking at all this stuff. Anything not transsexual related, DSM. I'm trying to avoid the lady thinking, what is this little boy looking at? So I find it and I open it and I read about it. And it was the first moment in my life that I realized there was other human beings on this planet like me. So the next day, did my paper route, sister spending the night with friends, mom and dad are at work, and I went full regalia Mia. And I got to spend the day as me, and I was so happy. And my sister came home early and caught me. Hi, how you doing? It was not a good moment. So I bribed her with all of my paper route money and said, just don't tell mom and dad, don't tell mom and dad, don't tell mom and dad. Mom comes walking in the door. Why didn't you do the dishes? She's yelling at my sister. My sister's like, Chad was in a dress. That's how I felt. Dad comes home, sits me down. Are you a fag? Are you a homo? He's a cop. So he's been working in the park, soliciting gay men for undercover work and trying to snatch guys at stuff. So he's like, do you want to go to Moore Park? Do you want to go and do you want to give blowjobs to men? I'm dying. So no, I'm not that way. No, I'm not. Next day I went out for football. I literally went out for football. I got my ass handed to me, but I went out for football and I sucked. But from that point forward, I was just going to be the boy that everyone wanted. So I joined the military as soon as I turned 18. I actually joined before I was 18, so I could go. And day I was 18, I was out of there. So I joined the military, and one of the best things on the planet happened to me. I met my wife, and we have been together for 22 years. So we lived over there in Germany. Then we lived Fort Campbell, 101st Airborne Division. That's what we got out, the Army. Both of us were in the military. We got out, we went to college, and I got a degree in education. She became an ER nurse. And I became a police detective for the Phoenix Police Department. And I became a patrol officer, and I did that for years. And it's a rough area. I was in South Phoenix. And after my time in South Phoenix, I later became a detective. I went into public affairs. I worked in cold cases. I got up and did a radio and TV show. And the beauty of it is about 2 in the morning somewhere in the world, or well, at least in America, someone's watching me on camera and doing commercials. You'll see some little clips from that. But it was leading me to, I had a knack, and my knack was finding people and working on computers. So I went and eventually worked in robbery, homicide, internal affair cases, and child sex crimes as an investigator. Then the point hit where I knew that I needed to transition, and I started my transition. And I was recruited for a job with the ATF. I was leaving the department. My supervisor came to me and said, what you're doing now, they have a civilian position with ATF out in San Francisco. So I was like, yeah, I want it. They called me. They asked me if I wanted the job. I said, yes, I want the job. And they said, okay, if you want the job, it's yours if you want it. You just have to pass the background. So I passed the background. We went through that process. We moved our whole lives to San Francisco. We get to San Francisco. They let the contractor that I would be working for knew that I was transgender. She let the ATF lab know that background was completed, I was ready to start work. I was told 2 days later that the job was no longer available. The federal budget, it was a Friday night, it was the first Obama canceling the budget. The Republicans were fighting, they were shutting down. It was a Friday night, it went up to 10 o'clock at night. That night, the budget went through. Well, I got an email at 2 in the afternoon that same day from the contractor saying, my budget's been wiped. You see what's going on in Washington, everything's gone. So I'm watching like everyone in the world, the budget goes through. So I'm like, yes, I got the job. I still got it. So that Monday I tried calling her, she no longer answers my phone call. Weeks go by, she doesn't answer my phone calls. We started the investigation. That was me back when you catch me on TV. So we start this investigation. What we found at the first phase of the investigation was, okay, there's a problem here. There might have been some discrimination. So we send it up. The next thing we find out at the investigation level was there might be discrimination. So we're like, oh, okay, so let's move this up the ladder. No. Unfortunately, because you were with the ATF, who falls under the Justice Department, the ATF doesn't have a transgender inclusive policy for discrimination. So unfortunately, even though you were discriminated against, you don't have a right to a formal process. We'll send you through this informal process where we pay for the investigator and we pay to have it investigated, and it's going to be really unbiased though, even though we're investigating ourselves. But well, it's going to be fair. So we said, yeah, that's bullshit. So I was like, okay, that doesn't sound good at all. So started moving it up the ladder. And nobody in the 47 years of this beautiful United States since the 1964 Civil Rights Act was passed had ever challenged through the EEOC process and through the federal process sex. Religion was pretty basic across the board. Religion was set across the board. But when it came to sex, race was also across the board. No one had had any challenges. But under sex, no one had ever challenged it until Macy v. Holder, my case. And unfortunately, Eric Holder's tried to take his name off of it, but we're bound by law. We're married in history, so sorry. I'm sorry there, Eric, but you're with me to life. He actually did. They applied to have the name changed to Macy versus DOJ. And I was like, no, I love you, Eric, but you're with me. So you're tied up in there. So what the decision said was, it was under sex. For the first time ever, someone to challenge, it says change of sex, change of gender. Does not conform to gender stereotyping. And my wife and I wrote that on the hood of her car with the Sharpie. We had a deadline we had to meet, and we were going over the wording that the original lawyers that I had were using at the time. They had used this complicated legal term, and I was like, it doesn't make sense, though. It's a sex discrimination case. At its heart, we always knew it was a sex discrimination case. And that's what the core and that's what the EEOC did. So I challenged that, and it had to go through an appeals process. If you don't know how the EEOC works, there's 5 commissioners. They're appointed by each administration, kind of like Supreme Court justices. They sit in different parts of the country. They don't meet up and hold hands and kumbaya. They don't vote together, and they only vote if one dissents. In my case, it was 5-0. They voted in my favor. If you want to call it a vote, the decision was 5-0. And with that, that was very helpful for this country. But unfortunately, a lot of, and one of the reasons I'm doing what I'm doing today is to get it out to the next generation and the next people to do it. Stepping on the same, after my last speaker, stepping on his shoulders, I just want to say that the nonprofits in this country, a lot of them have subversively kept this information from you. That I even believe from our keynote speaker this morning, he said it was wonderful. 34 states have transgender inclusive, but or 34 states don't have. No, bull. All 50 states have inclusive transgender protection in employment. Read Macy v. Holder. You've had it. You've had it since April of 2012 in the United States. INDA is actually going to hurt transgender. Why will it hurt transgender? Well, because it has a religious inclusion in it, which Macy v. Holder doesn't have. So that little phrase does not conform to gender stereotyping. You work at a hospital. You work at a facility that's a Catholic West hospital or a Catholic religious-run institution. They would have the right to still deny you under INDA protection. Under Macy v. Holder, you don't. And lawyers in this country since 2012 have understood Macy v. Holder, and they have been practicing this employment practice. I get contacted constantly from around the country that are lawyers that are using this. They're understanding it's not just for transgender because of that beautiful little phrase that came up and popped in my wife's head, does not conform to gender stereotyping. It can be used for same-sex couples, sexual orientation. It's there. The director who's now in charge over at the EEOC, she has understood and been sharing this for the last couple of years, trying to get this information out there. And what people need to understand is that federal poster on the wall that you have in your break room when you're at work, okay, it was fixed. It was fixed in that decision. And how do I know this was fixed? It wasn't just the 2012 decision, because last summer, after 24 months of investigation, I won. I actually proved that there were 4 individuals that did discriminate against me. They lied multiple times through investigations and through the process. Between the contractor saying, because she said that all her jobs were gone. We'll go back to that. Remember, oh, the jobs are gone. You don't have a job. I lost all my contract. No, they actually hired a guy. They didn't lose their contract, and they actually hired a guy. And the guy they hired had never been in the military, never been police, and actually had misdemeanor convictions, criminal convictions. So I've been going around for the last 2 years trying to tout this and banging my head against some of these nonprofits. We talk about privilege. We talk about privilege because there are groups in this country that are trying to protect their privilege and keep their jobs. And they need to. They know INDA isn't going to pass this year. But why are they still running up the wagon and saying we need to give money, fight INDA, fight INDA, fight INDA? If INDA gets passed this year, I'll come back here and stand here and say, okay, I'm an idiot, but INDA's not getting passed this year with the current House situation. And there are groups raising money off of that, continuing to tell you. If you looked at Transgender Law Center's website today and yesterday, they put out a thing again telling you that you have protection in all 50 states. Then you have immediately NCTE, National Center for Transgender Equality, putting out, oh, you don't have transgender inclusive rights in all the states. You can't raise money for your group and gain privileges through your group without fabricating. And I get constantly contacted by transgender individuals from around the country that didn't understand. I've gone to meetings and classes where it's 100 transgender individuals, and they're like, what? I didn't know. Not only did I win last summer the first part of my case, I won the second part. Second part was against a federal contractor. We've been debating the last couple weeks. You keep hearing about we want an executive order from the president giving contracted workers transgender protection. He could do it now. You've heard it on every talk show. He could give us protections right now. You've had it. You've had it since last year, August of 2013. You have had federal contracted protection of transgender workers' rights in this country. And I will continue to go out and bash this over everyone's head until they understand it. It's been here. And this was the decision charging order from the EEOC with their contractor. They're handling, the EEOC is helping with the contractor side of it. So with that, I have developed and started working, I can't do it in the 25 minutes, working with police departments and fire departments and local organizations that employ, how should we say, almost a male-dominated pseudo-military organizations. I can speak to them. I ride Harleys. I shoot guns. I'm a Republican dream. I've been married for 21 years. I have a, I've been married 21 years. I shoot guns. All right. I'm everything but this one little caveat. There's this one little thing a little different. So I can talk to them. And so I've been going around helping with their practices of changing their jailing systems. Like the Los Angeles jail system isn't there yet, but it's getting there, where we have transgender equality or trying to get transgender equality in the prison systems, how the police officers talk and speak to transgender groups and transgender, especially transgender of color, is a big deal because they're more inclined to have a higher death rate, wrongful prosecution rate, higher disease rate, poverty rate. You go down the line, we're the lowest of the lowest of the lowest on that LGBT scale, and then you go down for transgender color, and there you get to be at the bottom. So it is beautiful that look at Vern Cox, and we got these superstars out there making a difference. But we also need to get away from, and it's one of the things I'm using, is if you are aesthetically pleasing, it's okay. If she fits a mold, Janet Mock, anyone fits a mold for us, we're okay with that. They can speak to us. But it's not them. It's the ones without a voice that won't get to have their hormone therapy, won't get to have their health and wellness and have a well woman exam or have a male exam. They won't get those processes. So if I can use my little bit of privilege to go out and kind of sock it to the white Anglo police, fire, and the first responders that are going to be dealing with them, I'm going to use that until I can burn it down. And that is Mia Macy. I still have some time, so I know some are going to the bathroom, but let's take some questions if anyone wants to. That's my presentation. Kind of knocked it in a nutshell. Thank you all for the applause. But if anyone got questions, come up to the mic or throw your hand up. I scream, so you got it.
Okay. Hello, thank you for your presentation. Really loved it.
Thank you.
But just something I'd like to say concerning your regards to, those transgender, transsexual women who don't have the opportunity to go through hormonal treatments and other ways to make them feel more like a woman.
Yeah.
I know personally, I remember I live in Maryland, so I often go to DC. And I remember one day just seeing this woman who would walk around, and I bumped into her a few times. And it was one of the hottest days during the summer. It was one of those heat wave days. And I remember just walking by thinking, you know what? She deserves to be pretty. She deserves to, live her life as a woman. She doesn't deserve to have people look at her like, wow, why is this guy dressed up in a dress? Or why is this guy, trying to paint his nails? She deserves to be pretty. So, thank you, man. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh. Yeah, and I love that because one of the things that I hear all these people talking about, and one of the reasons I just tackle employment, I won't get into the healthcare issues and everything. There's a reason why I'm married to a nurse. And here's the deal on that. You cannot get those other steps unless you have a job. The only way we're taking someone off the street, the only way we're getting someone out of a bad situation is to empower them, to employ them, and let them then do that through their employer and get that help that they need. I know there's groups out there that are like fighting, and they're fighting on the healthcare side. I'm like, but if we give them a job, the other stuff will come. We can get the other stuff. Let's get them to work first and let us in that. Because I can assure you, I've met so many transgender individuals. We hold one of they do these studies. I don't know how they study. I've never been asked. But they always say like top 1%. Well, we spend a lot of time in our youth reading and doing electronics or alone. So yeah, we make a lot of the websites. Sirius Satellite Radio was designed by, the technology was by a transgender woman. Trans are amazing individuals on this planet, but you gotta help some of us. And the way we gotta do that is employ. And you're absolutely right, she deserves to have that health coverage. And I get kind of pissed that these states are now offering transgender inclusive health benefits. That's bullshit. It needs to not be capped. It's like saying you imagine telling a guy you could have so much, a prostate cancer, but you've reached the limit of your prostate cancer. No, it's not capped. Cancer's not capped. But we refuse to say, like for trans men, they cap it. Like even California has like $75,000 cap. So you can get your transgender surgery up until a point, you've hit your wall. You're no longer transgender-ish, you cover it yourself. So it's such bullshit. But we need to work first for employment rights, and then we can knock down those other rules. But it's that privilege, and I think it's going to be knocked through a lot of people's head, that there is a privilege that we have. And where I love that someone brought up Orange is the New Black about the prison, I get kind of pissed on the other side of it that it is an aesthetically pleasing person. We're okay with it. We can talk about trans, because Chaz looks like one of us, Chaz is one of the guys now, so it's cool. But, they don't want to address, just the regular people that just want to live. So that's my 2 cents. I think employment first, and then we'll get the other stuff. Yeah.
I appreciate you speaking thank you. I appreciate you speaking and being such a positive role model. I teach in a high school and was helping a young trans male through his transition. We were still fighting about bathrooms. So he's trying to get a surgery covered by health insurance. He's now in college, doing very well, but we're still talking about bathrooms.
I get that question, and I get that a lot about the bathroom issue. And I do elementary, junior high, high school, and college classes, and I'll speak. And the bathroom one scares me even to this day. I got to tell you, I got off the plane, I traveled by myself. This was one of the first times I've ever traveled without my wife. And I'm still petrified going into a women's bathroom. And I don't care if you go, what bathroom you use, I'm still petrified. And trust me, you don't want to meet me in the back of a back alley. I'm a tough rod, but I'm still scared. But yeah, I'm not the last one you want to meet in the alleyway, but it scares the living daylights out of me. And it will always be there. I think, I always joke, but it's like the horror movie. They always go to the bathroom because your pants are literally around your ankles and you're vulnerable. And they use that as some perverted type of fear-mongering. And it is exactly perverted type of fear-mongering. That's why horror directors use it in a movie, because it gets us all, we all can connect to that fear and that moment. And if you can grab that, and it also goes back to the fact that everyone always associates transgender with being some kind of deviant, sexual deviant behavior. And so they immediately go to that, and moms and dads go, ooh, I don't want that person in the bathroom with my kid. What bathroom are they in? Because I don't want to be in that bathroom ever. Just like, that one scares me. Yeah, go ahead. Okay.
I'm curious about, you were saying that ENDA would set back the trans equality, at least insofar as employment discrimination. My understanding is that most courts have rejected exactly the argument that the EEOC accepted, the sex discrimination claim you were mentioning earlier. So I'm curious, is it significant to you that while you can, and trans individuals can go to the EEOC and try to get some sort of relief from the EEOC, but that the doors of the U.S. courthouses pretty much unanimously have rejected that claim and are closed to you? Is that
That's incorrect,
significant
though.
enough?
No, that's actually wrong. The court's actually, and if you read the Macy v. Holder decision, it's about 62 pages. If you read through it, they quote the cases. Actually, the courts have ruled. The case that would define me was actually a Price Waterhouse case, which was a woman, not a transgender woman, who was actually emailed by her supervisor that said, you would move up the chain and do better if you weren't so butch, if you femmed it up a little bit. So the courts have actually ruled, and so my case was actually based off of a cisgendered woman's executive decision. But my time is up. But yeah, if you actually read the decision, the courts are actually fell in line with Macy v. Holder and already backed mine. So the courses, you're backwards on that. The courts came first around the country in different jurisdictions, and then the EEOC matched that once they had pro-people that were administrating at the EEOC. The problem with INDA is it's also a law, which can be reversed.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.